we're going to be having a continuance due to some technical difficulties that we had the last discussion, debate, whatever you want to call it, about the RAV. We're going to be having, tonight we've got Millbilly, we've got Calf, we've got One Strand, we've got Kelly and Dr. Soapman in here again. The last thing that Dr. Soapman was talking about was item FL, and we're going to try and continue with that discussion. There will be blood pressure rising again already. Some things that were brought up here in a private discussion before we got on here. There's a couple of good things. Millbilly, just as a reminder, what you had brought up about the battery, I want that to be a key point to discuss about, because that was a pretty good subject to talk about in reference to this debate here tonight. So I'll let everybody take off with that. I think we're going to start off with Soapman now.
Oh, beautiful. Well, look, thank you guys. Thank you, Millbilly, for inviting me on. In terms of item FL, it really is such an important piece of forensic evidence, which I think is going to cause, and it has, the state a lot of problems. Ken Kratz talked about item FL, item FK, which were the two bullet fragments that were found in the garage, Stephen Avery's garage. Now, I have to admit that Ken Kratz never said that item FL was responsible for the skull damage to Teresa Halbach, or the victim, of course. But he tried to draw the inference, so I'll just be very, very quick. So in court, in the trial testimonies, he was talking about the fact that there were two bullet fragments that were found in the garage, two cranial bone fragments that had beveling inside them, and the fact that the victim was shot at least twice in the head. It had a very devastating impact on Stephen in the courtroom. However, the state made the mistake of handing over item FL to Kathleen Zorner to look at. And when her scientist, Chris Palahniuk, looked at item FL, instead of finding bone fragments inside or on the soft lead of the bullet, he found wood chips and red paint. There was also the presence of wax and also the presence of cotton fibers. So it looks like someone had touched the bullet with maybe like a cotton swab. So it now really weakens the case, because it's pretty obvious that item FL never struck bone. And it's interesting that now item FL is not the bullet that could have caused the cranial bone damage. And it definitely could not have struck Teresa Halbach in the skull, and could not have caused her death. So unfortunately, that's only found out now. But during the court trials, that was very devastating to hear. So the question is, how did item FL get wood in it? It's likely that Roland Johnson, who owned the rifle, had fired bullets all over the place, and one of them went through the wall of the garage and dropped to the ground. So item FL's got nothing to do with this case.
Yeah, and also, if you listen to the jail calls, Stephen states when he's talking to Jody that him and Bobby Dassey, or her and Bobby Dassey, were standing at the garage shooting at his burn barrel. And what do we have? There's bullet holes in the burn barrel. So
correct. But you can see now, guys, how mischievous and how bad it really was. Ken Kratz tried to use any piece of forensic evidence to hold it against Stephen, because Ken Kratz had a narrative that he had to follow. And remember, it was Wiegert who said to Brendan, right, who shot her in the head? So it's not even Brendan who had volunteered that information. That come from the investigators. Lo and behold, one day after, they find those two bullet fragments. And now the state has to explain, okay, If it's got wood in it, it obviously didn't go through bone.
Yeah. But how do you explain?
What's the result? Yeah.
How do you explain everything else Brendan said? Said that the knife was under the seat. They went and looked for that, not there. Why would they even go back to look for that if it had already been processed at the crime lab?
Correct. It's actually very embarrassing when you think about it, Milbilly.
If it was a planted car, why would they go to look if there was a knife under the seat when they know it wouldn't have been there because they put the car there?
But they document in Queso that they went and did that. After they went to go look for the knife.
Correct. They did. It's actually in Queso. So they actually document the time they went in, what they did, and they looked underneath the seat and they said, there's no knife here. But the stupid thing is, of course, is that several investigators went inside the RAV4 and checked it from top to bottom because they documented everything that they took out of the RAV4, and a gun and a knife wasn't one of them. So it's rather embarrassing now because what they're trying to do is to tie Brendan's confession with physical hard evidence. There's none.
Nope.
There's none. None of his story.
He first said he shot her outside the garage. And the Fassbender's like, no, what did you do in the garage?
That's correct.
What did he do to the car? Did he go underneath the hood? They're feeding him the whole time.
Correct. Yeah, there's no question. It's probably one of the worst interrogations I've ever had the displeasure of reading. I know, Milbilly, you refuse to read it anymore. It's very, very painful. It's very disingenuous. It really, really is. And it is the investigators that gave the narrative. Everything that Brendan talked about came from the investigators, and nothing that Brendan said could be corroborated. You know, when he talked about what he did, cutting off the hair, cutting the throat, which would have meant there would have been blood absolutely everywhere, hiding the knife, hiding the gun, even taking off the number plates. He didn't even see his uncle take off the number plates, right? Which is rather bizarre. So, and also the biggest furphy, guys, is when he said to Fassbender how him and his uncle drove the RAV, like I said, past his mum's, past his grandmother's house, past Chucky's place, down to the pit. And you can see that there's no dog tracks there. The dogs aren't even there. So clearly he's wrong. And the investigators told Stephen and Redaunt exactly where that RAV4 came from, which was from the quarry area. So what's bad is that the investigators knew when they were questioning Brendan that Brendan had no idea. None.
Which brings up something else there, Doctor, something about Brendan's questioning that has always I found it really fascinating that these officers thought that they were so smart. The one thing that they did not ask is, hey, Brendan, what happened to the turn signal? You would think he would know the answer to that.
Correct. But you see, and that, Jamie, that's a brilliant question, because if he said, what turn signal, as in, I know nothing about the turn signal, then there you go. Then he gives the ruse away. He now knows, the investigators will now know they've got no idea what they're talking about. Brendan has got no idea but imagine if Brendan said to Wiegert and Fassbender, oh yeah, by the way, when we drove that RAV4, we knocked it, and we dropped the signal, and we went out there, we got it, and we put it in the boot. Bang. But Jamie, you're correct. The mere fact that Brendan never mentioned a collision or any damage goes to show that poor kid knew nothing about the RAV4. Yeah, excellent observation, Jamie. And I think it was Paul Capaldi who mentioned, because he spoke to Ken Kratz, and he said, how come you never hit Brendan with the porn that was on his computer? And apparently Paul Capaldi got banned from ever talking to Ken Kratz again, which goes to show The whole system, everything is made up. They've made up everything. The investigators did.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I had actually made a comment back when I was on Twitter to Ken when he was. This was after the AC rookie questionnaire came out, and I made a statement to Ken when he was talking about how the narrative fits, and I mentioned that hey Ken, you prosecuted under two different ruses of how she was murdered.
Correct.
That
Yes.
tells me you have no idea how she was actually killed, still to this day. And yeah, after that, I was done.
Spot on. Spot on. Spot on. But what's even worse, Jamie, if I could just say, Billy, was that I read his book. I read Ken Kratz's book, and all he's doing is changing the narrative. He now admits that Ida Meffel never struck bone.
The only part of his book that I've read is two paragraphs of his new chapter when they talk about Cuss Road. And it actually was read to me. I didn't actually read
it. Yes, correct. But what he's doing is now changing the narrative. He now admits that Ida Meffel never struck skull, never struck bone. So now he's stuck. He's now stuck. So what does he go and say? Well, it went through her body. But the trouble is there's no blood and there's also no tissue. There's no pool of blood. There's nothing. So it means that now he's stuck with a bullet with no bone on it, no evidence it was a through and through hit. And now it's got Teresa Halbach's DNA on it. So that means there are two options. Either the state admits the DNA was there because of contamination or deliberate evidence tampering. Because by him saying it went through her body, where's the blood? Where is the tissue? There's none, right? And Culhane even mentioned there was nothing on that bullet.
You got to remember, though, the reason why they needed Brendan to go in the garage is because there was 7 inches of snow outside.
Correct. And even Ken Kratz said it because that's why they showed the outside images to say, oh, none of our officers planted the bullet because there's no footsteps in the sand, in the snow.
I don't know if anybody else noticed, but in the videos we have, or photos too, everything's where it's supposed to be, and then they come back the next day and everything's been moved.
Yeah. Correct. And you see, when Zona went in there with her investigators, they found bullet holes in the garage walls. Right? They found through and through shots.
Mm-hmm.
And that's exactly how Ida Meffel got into the garage. It got shot from outside. And I think on the outside of the garage, it's red.
Yeah.
So the bullet, so the bullet picked up lead, a bit of the paint as it went through.
The trailer used to be
yes, and likely because of the winter, you can get some expansion, contraction of the wood, and the bullet popped out. And they go, oh, look,
or
there's
from
a
them
bullet.
jackhammering the concrete might have lodged the bullet down too.
Vibration, correct. And it's rather embarrassing because item FK was found in the crack of the cement, which they missed, right? And those idiots have even got photographs of the compressor underneath the compressor, and there's no bullets. But you see how clever they are. They go, jeepers, how are we going to account for this? So I reckon that one of the investigators stuck the bullet under the compressor to say, oh, we never saw it. It's because it was hidden. But they must have forgotten that they photographed under the compressor and there's no bullets there.
Yeah.
So that, it's garbage. It truly is garbage.
Or the fact that the bullet was placed on top of all like the dust that they had used to uproot the concrete. It had been placed on top. If it had been already there, it would have had all that on top of it as well.
I really would like to find out what's in those missing 30 pages we have of those dog reports. Why is Manitowoc? Manitowoc is the one that sends them to Twin Ridge Road. Did they in turn send them to the turnaround too? Is that why we don't have them 30 pages? Are they trying to keep that covered up too? They obviously find items there. So
correct.
Multiple sightings.
Has anyone tried to get the 30 pages missing?
Braun, I know she contacted KZ to see if she might have them.
Okay. No word yet?
Yeah, it'll be very interesting.
No word yet.
All right.
Yeah, it'll be very interesting. And, it can't be a fluke that you've got all these people citing the RAV, right? And the mere fact that the RAV is being cited off the salvage yard is very, very damning in itself. It really is.
So being that you brought that up here, I'm going to scroll back because I believe it was Anna that asked a question in reference to that, what you just stated. We'll look back here real quick.
And while you're doing that, Millbilly, here's a question for you. All these sightings of the RAV off the salvage yard that the witnesses said they saw, do you believe that was her actual real RAV?
I do.
You're right. So you think that they've taken it from there and then the cops have taken it and then for some whatever reason and then put a fake one on the salvage yard?
Well, we know they were hanging flyers up in Mishicot on the 3rd of November. We also have Manitowoc taking a green vehicle into custody on the 3rd of November. On the 4th of November, there's no longer a car there. Why is it that all the Manitowoc dispatch we have, not a single call for the 4th? But we have printout records of the dispatch calls that took place.
Because wasn't the 4th the day of the planting?
The day of the flyover.
So that's probably only a couple of people involved in that.
The same day that David Beach showed up at the Avery salvage yard and was let on the property to search himself. Not to mention there's a flyover going over at the same time too. So they had people on the ground in the salvage yard looking, did not find their car anywhere. He even let people drive through the yard. Earl did.
Yep. There was no RAV4 then.
Not to mention
there was
Stephen Avery and Earl Avery were down in the pit at the crusher, sighting in his 30-06 for deer hunting, which was going to happen in about 3 weeks.
Yes.
And the whole time Stephen's in jail, especially right around deer hunting, that's all he's concerned about. Is everybody hunting? No, it's not the same.
What time of the day was it when the neighbours saw the RAV getting driven in with the white car following the white SUV? Yeah. What time of day was that?
You'd have to go back and read his affidavit. I'd like to hear these people's actual audio interviews to see what they actually did say.
Yeah.
Because you look at the Earl's November 9th interview, it's not documented in CASO, but it fucking happened. So why are they telling them it's a good thing you were hiding yesterday? Because we had somebody that was with us yesterday that's not with us today. This works out better for you. I believe that part of that interview is missing because right before you go to the next tape, he starts talking. You flip to the next tape, and they're like, "Oh, aren't you glad you got that off your chest now?" He didn't say anything. And right before that, he's all gun-ho about the cops framing Stephen Avery. What did they tell him?
Yeah.
Oh, we're not Manitowoc. I'm from DCI. I'm from Calumet. They tell the same thing to Stephen Avery, Wiegert and Fassbender. They use the same story, same ploy on everybody.
Yes, they did.
The thing is, though, why when they're talking to Jody right before they go after Brendan, they're telling her Stephen did this alone.
Yep. Correct. Well, Millbilly, I think the answer to that is obvious. the planters, the MTSO, the investigators never contemplated that Brendan was going to come along on the scene. And in the end, he actually turned to be a liability rather than an assistance. And that's why Ken Kratz had to do 2 separate trials, because he knew that if he put Brendan on the stand, Brendan would have recanted and it would have looked really, really bad. So, yeah, they weren't expecting Brendan at all. And that explains why there's no forensic evidence against Brendan, because the planters had no idea about Brendan. They only focused on one person, and all the forensic evidence points towards Steven Avery, right? Nothing. Now, I'm sorry, but I don't think that Brendan Dassey is a forensic guru. He's just a normal kid. He's got his issues, but there's no way he can hide, blood, skin, cells, the whole lot, hair, nothing. There's nothing of him that ties him to Teresa Halbach. Nothing.
Nope.
I can't get my head around the fact that if that is one of the sightings there at the turnaround, that it's pretty much walking distance to Scott Tadich's.
Correct.
Scott's Tadich property. Well, not at the time. They didn't live there.
No, but didn't he live in a trailer just down the road from that turnaround?
Across the street and west of this area. Now they live across the river east of this area.
I know, but still, so close.
Millbilly, what do you think the reasoning is then for them if they did pick up that RAV on the 3rd? Why didn't they use that RAV?
They didn't have a key for it. How are you going to move a car onto a property without a key? You can't even push it in without a key. You gotta break the steering column. You ain't be able to drive it, even if you push the car from behind. You need to unlock the steering column so you can turn the car. If they don't have a key, they can't start the car. Why I think they put a new battery in it is because they got that car from a junkyard. That car is specifically a decoy. But when Pam took pictures, she fucked up.
Yeah, but those pictures could have just went missing like everything else was missing.
They all could have disappeared just like other things have in this case. So that doesn't weigh heavy for me as far as
we got audio of her happening. If it happening, they can't make it disappear. She was there. We got all these people cited. Earl even states that he's seen her and Nicole sitting in the back of the police car laughing. Now, I don't know how true that is, but he made that statement. He also states that Paul Robbins.
Who did Earl see?
He also said Paul Robbins is the one that removed the car from the property with their new wrecker.
All right. Okay.
Sure enough, Paul Robbins shows up as the fire chief, leaves, comes back as the tow truck driver.
Right. But do you have any idea who took the RAV on the 3rd from the turnabout? Who removed it?
We don't know. It wasn't investigated. It was completely ignored.
Right. But they wouldn't.
We got multiple sightings of this car at the turnaround. We also have people that are coming to Steven Avery saying that they heard that the cops did this.
So are you saying then that there was nothing on dispatch for them calling a tow truck, so it would have had to been done over a cell phone?
They called Paul Robbins on the 4th at 12:58 3 times in a row.
I watched a news interview that they did at the time, and they were inside a few of the bars asking people questions about what they thought had happened, and 90% of them went, "It's a setup from the cops," and they were like, "And I'm not scared to say it on TV." Just the local people in the town.
That's all I'm saying. There was definitely a missing persons poster hung up at the Cenex in Michigan. We have a Manitowoc dispatch call where an officer named Ryan The dispatcher knows who he is. He knows who he's talking to, so he's affiliated with that department or Manitowoc PD. He states he just seen a flyer at the Senex, wants to know if it possibly could be Carmen Bootwell. But who put that poster up in Mishicot? Was it Ryan Hilgis?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know.
Why did Jerry and Dean could have did so many things that they didn't do? Just involving that Colburn call. They could have subpoenaed the dispatcher, didn't do that. They didn't even try to analyze the audio to see if, well, that's why it makes my head hurt.
Yes.
Yeah, they could have gotten the ping of what tower he was near when he did that, right?
We don't have any phone records from the police department. Might have Ryan's if his phone was on.
No, I mean if Andrew used his cell to call the station as he says he did, he was
using his police issued cell phone, not his fucking personal phone.
Okay.
Oh, so, I'd love Ryan's phone numbers.
Every time they're asking for a 21, when they call somebody, it comes up anonymous.
So then at least Buting could have gotten the ping off of which tower Andy was at when he made that call.
And I've had my friend's social worker, and her phone that she got issued from the state, she's not allowed to answer it. She can only listen to the voicemails and then call the people back. It's weird.
Yeah. Yes. But are we all agreeing that the RAV was at the turnabout on the 3rd, like Ramlo said?
Yeah. He says he's seen it on the 3rd, and then he talked to the officer the next day.
On the 4th.
The last person to see a vehicle at that location in time of 2005 was Robert Fabian, and then he changed his story.
Right. Yeah. So if it was seen on the 3rd, that matches the Manitowoc report where they have a vehicle seized on the 3rd, and that Teresa is reported as being kidnapped.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that tends to, if that's true, that tends to suggest that there probably would have been no body in that RAV4, like Teresa Halbach was actually missing, and there was probably minimal evidence of violence, right? Because they said that she was kidnapped.
We got that, her car being in custody and her kidnapped. Now, we got a dispatch call in the Calumet County of Teresa's friend calling because she received a phone call with I believe it was either all 9s or all 0s. She heard the person on the phone say her name twice, a commotion in the background, and then the call went dead. She calls dispatch. Right. Dispatcher says, we'll call your phone company. Maybe they'll be able to help you. She calls her phone company, doesn't get the answer she wants to hear, calls directly back to dispatch and was like, well, I want you to check into this because if it was Teresa Halbach calling me, and this is right before the 7th happens too.
Right, but it never registered on her personal phone records?
No, the call came in as either all 0s or all 9s. And she couldn't get an answer from her phone company.
Right.
She said the caller said her name twice. She heard a commotion in the background, and then the call went dead.
Right. But was that call made from Teresa Halbach's mobile phone or somebody else?
Don't know, because it came back all 0s. Right. Or all 9s or all 0s. One of the two. I can't really
right. Remember. Okay. What date was this, Millbilly?
The 6th, I believe.
The 6th, yeah.
Who's knocking on Leo's door looking for an address? Why wasn't that investigated further? Not to mention when Leo R calls in, Wiegert's not even a half mile away from him. I'll just write it down. I'll look at it later. That's not the case. already
No.
judging. They're already having their mind.
Correct.
It's going to happen.
Correct. The problem is because it was tunnel vision, they let so much things go under the bridge and they didn't investigate. And that was a huge disaster. Huge, because we're talking about it now, right? In 2020, but it should have been looked at years ago.
Yes.
Years ago should have been looked at.
Sure should have.
You know, a lot of leads went dead, and that's not how you do a proper investigation.
Nope. Unless you're trying to
So,
frame
you know,
somebody.
So, you know, whether there's one or two RAVs, right? The only RAV we can talk about to be consistent is the RAV that Pam McGod found, right? Because that's the one that was forensically examined in the crime lab. So, yeah, that one there. We can't talk about any other RAV. There could be another RAV, but we really can't talk about it because we don't have it in front of us. And only Kathleen Zellner, by going and subpoenaing the RAB, getting the RAB in front of her, can her team go right through it. Call up the people from Toyota and quote all the numbers that she finds in, and they'll tell her exactly where that RAV came from, right? Engine number, chassis number, build date, the whole lot.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And if it doesn't match with the sales slip that of Teresa's original, so-called original RAV, then you know that there's some monkey business going on.
So then, Melbelly, what do you surmise they were going to do? How, if they didn't have a key, how would they ever have switched it back?
Explain the missing time it took them to get to the crime lab.
Well, I think planting was going on then, the planting of the blood, in my opinion.
It'd be easier to switch the panels from one car to the other to plant blood.
That's a possibility.
You know how easy it'd be to take the real tailgate off that car and put it on another one? 6 screws. Why are the screw caps missing on that rear tailgate panel? They don't fall off. They have to be pried off. Why is the carpet untucked on the passenger side rear, but completely tucked like it's supposed to be on the driver's side? Why is the cover for the center console missing? Why are the rear covers missing? Why are there screws missing out of the dash?
Correct.
If someone
then
loved this car like Tom Pierce's claims, I don't think she'd let it get that dirty.
Yeah, but you don't know when all that. You don't. Is there timestamps for these pictures? Because that could have come after the lab has gone through
Why
it. And
is there no DNA of her in the car? None. No DNA except for the blood and the cherry Pepsi can. She drives that car every day. She should have skin cells everywhere.
Because they weren't trying to prove that she was in that car. They weren't there to look for her DNA.
If they're looking
to prove Stephen was in that car. Stephen, they already knew it was her car. They didn't have to prove it was her car. All they had to prove was Stephen was in that car, because then he links to the crime. That's it. They don't have to sit there and go, this is definitely Teresa's car because we've found her DNA, we've found her fingerprints. Because they're going to go, well, we weren't looking for her stuff because we know it's her car. So why would we go out of our way and waste time when we know it's her car?
Why is there a Manitowoc battery in the car? Why?
Maybe the battery went flat.
No.
You could still jump it. The alternator is going to still keep it charged long for you to drive from where the car is to where it's planted.
Not if it's sitting at the turnaround for 2 or 3 days.
If you jump a battery, the car will start.
Oh.
Yes, in the
answer my question, Melbelly. Because, all right, I know that Pam of God's pictures are what you say is the reason that they had to stay with the decoy. But how would they, if Pam hadn't taken the pictures, how would they have switched back to the decoy?
If Pam were to take the pictures, we wouldn't have no pictures. Except for the ones at night.
But we still wouldn't. How would they have switched the car back is what I'm asking you.
It's the same car that they planted on Avery's. They just took the panels from her real car and put them in that one.
No, you're not understanding my question. My question is, if they used the decoy, how were they planning on on going back to Teresa's real car, or were they not going to go back?
No, that won't.
They couldn't go back because the pictures were taken.
No, if the pictures had been taken,
then there would be no issue. We wouldn't know nothing.
Yeah, but then that makes no sense, because then why give her a camera in the first place? Why give her a camera in the first place?
You have to ask Ryan Hillius that question. I can't answer that question.
Yeah, but if he's got anything to do with it, and you think that they said to him, help her get to that RAV, then you have to then expect, why give her, if you're saying to us right now that she stepped up by taking those pictures, why give her the camera to step up there and take?
I don't know if she was kidnapped. I don't know if she's still alive. All I know is she's missing, and they framed Stephen Avery for this shit.
Okay, so
I mean, why are they lying on every chance they get? They're lying.
So there was never any intention to actually switch back to her actual vehicle if Pam had not made the mistake.
Because I believe they found her car immobilized, unable to move, and they couldn't plant her car on the property. But they took what they could from her car and planted it into another car after they removed the decoy from the property. Why is Paul Roberts the one? Like I said, if you look at the search warrant, sign in, sign out sheets, look who comes back in November, who's there in November. Look who comes back in March. Match the names.
Okay, what about this? Can we confirm
Why are they
that
calling Paul Roberts out there again? They're keeping the same people there so it doesn't get out.
Yes.
Why do you think Uyghur is writing down every single person that's coming on that property? He's switching around everybody's schedule so he keeps the same people there.
Yes.
You have to listen to everything I've listened to understand what I'm saying.
What about this? Listen to
I can't
this.
explain it easy peasy. I'm sorry. I wish I could.
Can we confirm that the VIN in Teresa's own vehicle registration or a pink slip was not provided by Manitowoc County?
Okay. Where is her registration?
Right. Listen to this. Decoding the VIN from Toyota, which specifies factory installed equipment, details the SR Power moonroof option. This is clearly identified by the wind deflector in the evidence photos. Being that this moonroof is not a common option fitted in these vehicles, I believe it's unlikely a substitute vehicle could be sourced in a short time frame, fitted the description, the condition with the correct factory fitting options. So if you type in RAV4 1999, you'll find that they rarely contain a moonroof. So to get 2 RAVs with a moonroof,
I see them all
very difficult.
Every single
time frame. It's got to match everything.
Since I've been following this case, I've only seen one green RAV4 in my life, and it drove right past me. And fortunately, I was sitting in the drive-thru waiting for my food. I almost drove off to follow it. They stick out like sore thumb. I see them everywhere.
But it's not a common option fitted.
Right. Why is there no documentation like her registration?
So now all of a sudden they've got 2 with 2 moonroofs.
Can I ask, at any stage through this whole trial, did Buting or Dean turn around and go, hey, there's something wrong with this RAV4, this doesn't look right?
No.
There's lots of things they didn't do.
Why not?
No.
Because
they know it was her RAV4. It wasn't even a question. It didn't need to be a question.
Why are they admitting that they fucked up? Both of them are admitting they fucked up.
Yeah,
because Zilna pointed out what they didn't do. That's why they admitted it. They admitted it because Zilna pointed out through her proper investigators and questioning what Dean should have done.
Everybody, if she gets her day in court, everybody's fucked.
Correct.
The prosecution, just needs to defense, everybody.
Yes, she needs to get her hands on the RAV. She needs to get her hands on that RAV. There won't be any RAV.
They got rid of the RAV. Who's to say they have the RAV still? That would be the most first thing they would get rid of is the RAV, especially if it's not hers.
Correct. Yep. The only thing that'll be left are the panels with the blood.
Out of every single evidence tag we see, only one of them has the VIN on it. That's when it's going to the crime lab. All the other ones say RAV4, RAV4, RAV4. Only one evidence tag has the VIN number on it.
Yes.
And we don't have a clear picture of the VIN anywhere.
Yes. I mean,
Listen,
you've got to remember.
yeah.
Oh, go.
I was just going to say, I've never got into the whole Pacific side of the VIN thing. I used to believe, like I said, I'm not here to prove that there's one or two. It's my perspective. I'm trying to keep it logical and realistic because it could be as simple as.
What do you really think? Honestly, not logic. What do you really think?
There's one.
And why? Explain, please.
I believe there's one because of this. There's no reason for them to plant a false car. It's as simple as using something of a true fact that belonged to Teresa, which is the RAV.
Okay,
all they had to do was connect Stephen to her. They needed that RAV to be on that salvage yard to get the warrant, to get on that salvage yard, to start searching. If you look at the rest, they wouldn't have gone to that much trouble to make this RAV work. They just wouldn't. There's nothing else that they haven't made this elaborate other thing. They just swapped samples. They've planted blood. They didn't make it difficult. So why would the RAV have to be anything different than that? All they need is to base something off a truth.
How does Stephen Avery have 18 witnesses stating he was somewhere else and still gets convicted? They'll do whatever they can to get who they want.
Yeah, but that's exactly right. But they didn't have to go and risk their entire case on it because at the end of the day, I'd hate to say this, but witnesses are not credible. They really aren't. There's a lot that you can get a lot of detail from them. You can get a lot of idea, like an understanding, but you could put 15 people in the room. You could get them all to witness the exact same accident, and every single one of those 15 people will have a different version of how they see it. So witnesses aren't credible. They can tamper with witnesses, but they can't tamper with the other stuff, and that's what I'm trying to say. The RAV is plausible for one. They only needed to make one connection. That's put Stephen in it. That's it. The rest falls into place. That's it. Why make it so big thing for no reason?
Of Teresa in that car.
But we don't know if there's a lack of Teresa. They just didn't report there was a lack of Teresa because they weren't looking for her. They weren't looking for Teresa.
Tell a different story. The car is dirty, like it's been sitting somewhere. The pieces that are removed from that car first are the same pieces that would come off of a car if I found it in a junkyard. If I had another RAV4 and I was looking for parts for my car, those would be the most common things that would break first. The rear covers in the back, the center console, it's the screws. It's not broke off. It was removed.
I don't know about you, but just get so riled up is like the best part of this whole video. He is so passionate about this, and I'm learning more just by listening to him. So Kelly, keep going because I keep learning more when he opens his mouth.
The other thing I was just going to say,
yep.
No, you go, Siltman. You go.
Right. I was going to say, looking at Occam's razor, the simplest plan. You don't need a substitute RAV. Because as Kelly was saying, and I understand what Millbilly's saying too, there's a lot of inconsistencies, and I agree. Someone has gone in that car and taken it apart. Someone was looking for something, or they've put in substitute parts in a duplicate RAV, right? For the sole purpose of there had to be something wrong with Teresa's original RAV if they used a duplicate. Because Kelly, I agree with Kelly, you don't need a duplicate RAV. All you got to do is to put Stephen's blood or DNA in that RAV, which means you're associating Stephen with Teresa Halbach's RAV, personal property on his property. He's toast, right? But you use a substitute RAV if something happened to Teresa's RAV that they couldn't use. In other words, whether she was shot in the RAV and it was completely messed out, whatever, or they couldn't use her particular RAV, then they would have had to have used the substitute. What do? You take the panels from her original RAV and put them into the substitute RAV, plant the whole lot, done. But having said that, there's a problem. If anyone, and I mean anyone, finds one screw, one bolt, one number that indicates a duplicate RAV, party over. The boys walk free. They're a massive, the MTSO, whoever, is in massive trouble. So here's the thing, Millbilly. Are the MTSO or the planter willing to risk being discovered?
$36 million.
I've got a bigger question.
Except one thing, except the defense has the right to examine the forensic evidence.
Exactly. At any stage.
That's
Yeah,
but at any stage.
Yeah, but really? Then how come Gunner can't get the RAV?
Because they're hiding the real RAV, because the truth is in that RAV, just like Gregory Allen.
Correct.
It took one DNA to get Stephen out, a different profile. That RAV has probably got the answer to the other person.
The answer's
in it.
You know,
and they know if that another DNA, another profile comes from that, over.
What if I'm right? That blows their whole case away. None of their search warrants are valid at all.
Millbilly, I'm going to say one thing. I hope you're right. Do you know why?
Correct.
Because if you are right, it's over. It is what I want.
It's over.
It's over. I want you to be wrong. I want you to be wrong.
The only thing will make me see a different light is if Zellner gets her hands on that RAV. That's why I understand when she tweeted that the VIN's been verified. How is she verifying a VIN on a car she's never seen?
Remiker had it with him. He had it with him. Remiker had it in a file. He brought it down to the salvage yard. They read off the VIN, and that's why Remiker said the rim appears to have been tampered with, because the planter tried to remove the VIN to buy more time, right? So he was just trying to take out a VIN from a vehicle from the dash.
He owns a car crusher.
Take the glass off.
Stephen Avery said it himself.
Yes, correct.
How was it crushed it and been done with it?
Correct. There's no way that Stephen Avery put that vehicle there. We know that the difficulty is this: we need to prove that it was planted. That's what we know. It's planted. We have to prove that it's planted, right? So here's the issue: if, like you said, Millbilly, if they used a duplicate RAV, it'll take an investigator 2 seconds to find out, because
not if the same thing happens what happened with the bones. They weren't expecting making a murder to come out. They weren't expecting none of this.
Dr. Silkman, I have a question for you.
No. But yes.
Would they in a lab even take a look at that VIN number to see if it's been tampered with? And would it be documented?
Well, normally if you're doing a proper forensic investigation of that vehicle, one, you would note every change that's happened to that vehicle. Like if things have been tampered with, are there fingerprints? What's the evidence that someone has tampered with something? So you know that the number plates were removed. Someone was trying to take the VIN off. Why? To buy more time, right? So that tends to suggest that gives Millbilly's theory credibility, because someone's mucking around with the VIN. Now, why would Stephen do that? He wouldn't. He would take it straight to his crusher, boom, or take it to the quarry, douse it with gasoline, and put it on fire, right? So by putting it there out in the open where anyone can spot it, it's complete garbage, right? I mean, Stephen works in a car yard. He disposes of vehicles. He knows how to use the crusher, the end loader, the whole lot. He's not going to leave it there, right? So the whole thing is...
The lab doesn't...
should be noted.
Well, Henbury, they lie on search warrants, so who's to say they wouldn't lie about everything else?
Yeah. So it's not...
I've pointed out more lies than I can think of. I have more questions now than I ever started with this. You read the reports and you listen to the audio, and there's a completely different story what's taking place. Just Cusk Road in general, November 7th.
Correct. So one strand, they should have noted it. They should have documented everything and it was only because Remiker accidentally said it. Otherwise, you wouldn't have known about it, right? Because, we've got a photograph of some VIN, but not very much. And to me, they know that the RAV holds the answer, and we know it does too because of A23, right? So therefore, we know that in that RAV, there's at least 3 genomic DNA profiles, right? Teresa's, Stevens, and A23. No one knows where A23 comes from. And if you look at where A23 is, man, that's exactly where you would find the killer's handprint, fingerprint, and also blood if he's been cut or whatever, right on the door. And does the state talk about A23? Nope. In fact, it was only in Brendan Dassey's trial because the attorneys were smart enough to say, "Oh, what's this?" And only then did Culhane have to admit about A23. Otherwise, you wouldn't have known about it, right? So therefore, you're right, One Strand. A proper forensic examination of that RAV4 would have revealed multiple blood sources in that RAV. We now know there's 3, not 2, 3. So whoever did the planting forgot about A23, right? So the RAV4 itself is a huge problem. That's your crime scene. That's your number 1 crime scene.
In her real RAV.
So I understand Milby's point of view. I really do. But we have to blame it on very, very poor documentation and forensics, because they nabbed that RAV4 on the 3rd, and I bet you Colburn would have got a heart attack when Ramlo went up to him and said, "See that vehicle on that missing girl poster? I saw it down there." Of course, he would have already known. If that was Colburn would have gone, "Uh-oh, I've been found out." And of course, what does he do? He calls in the plates, right? So he got caught out. So it's double whammy for him. He has a witness who saw the RAV independently. He has a witness who saw him, and he has a witness who saw the missing girl poster in the Senex station. So everything links together. And that's why Strang said to him, "Were you standing in front of that car when you called in the plates?" And of course, what's he going to say? Yes. Of course, he's going to say no. There you go. So I understand Milby's passion and viewpoint, but there's one problem. We can't prove it. Unless you get that RAV, unless you get the RAV. So Kelly's correct. Milby's correct. I isolate between 1 and 2. But all you need to do is to put Stephen's blood with Teresa's blood in the one spot. A RAV, right? And because of its color, it's blue-green, it's very easy to get it confused, right? Because I've looked at that picture of the vehicle in the garage and outside. Outside it looks green. Inside it's that beautiful blue. So it's a real weird looking color. But I must admit, both Kelly and Milby have got excellent points. I can't argue with them. But on purity, on simplicity, 1 RAV. 1. 2, you make one mistake. A forensic person going through that RAV will say, "This isn't Teresa Horbach's RAV, it's a substitute." And there goes your whole case. Boom. The 2 boys walk. They couldn't have done it. But the mere factor that the RAV was sighted at the turnabout on the 3rd.
Not by one person, not by 2 people, not by 3 people, 4 people. Correct. And one of them was, what, 12 years after the fact?
Yes. But also Siebert, right? Is it Siebert? The one that saw the 2 vehicles?
Going into the quarry.
Correct.
And he was out in his yard doing work.
So have you guys seen Henbury's comments in here? I had to jump out, but
yes, I have.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that you guys had seen them.
Yeah, he did make one before about the VIN. I was wondering if you could read that because I don't do the whole VIN side of it. He says the VIN is demonstrated in at least 6 different locations on the RAV in evidence. But to overcome more than one RAV, you have to overcome 6 correct VINs on correct RAV linked to Teresa.
The same Herman that shows up with Michael Bushman on the 7th of November. The same Herman that's driving around with Ricky Hostetter parts, evidence in his car, taking it home.
Yes.
Manitowoc officers taking buckets of bones home. They'll bring them in the morning. Same Manitowoc officers that don't file reports unless they're instructed to.
Yep. But I think the point being, Millbilly, is that if you're going to do a swap, you need to swap every VIN. And not only that, the engine's got a stamp on it that's in the metal, right? So they have to. There's a lot of things that got to change, and it's quite risky if you're going to do a substitute. Is a substitute possible? Yes, it is. Would you want to do it? Not if you can help it, right? So if they found the RAV on the 3rd, it was planted on the 4th, and Ryan Hilligers probably was involved in planting it. I have no doubt about that. And his drop calls, which is exactly what happened to Kathleen Zellner. She had a whole series of drop calls that only lasted for a little while, and they got dropped. He had 22 of them.
Because as soon as you go into the quarry, you're below the terrain. The towers are going to be above your head. The signals?
Correct. And,
well, all I know in this case is Millbilly's, Kelly has me convinced. Does Millbilly have a lot of good information that could sway me? Yes. I guess the only thing I know in this case is there's only 3 things I can actually say I know for a fact. 2 innocent men are in jail. That's 1 and 2. And there's corruption throughout this case. I can't even say that for sure she's gone because nothing's been proven in this case.
You're right.
Next debate is Teresa dead or alive?
Count me out.
Well, I can answer that super quick. If none of the from a molecular standpoint, she's dead. DEAD. From a molecular point, you have to do it's all based on one thing and one thing only, that the pap smear is hers. If the pap smear is Teresa Halbach's, she's dead. No question. If the pap smear is from somebody else, it's exactly like the RAV, a substitute. So you're in massive trouble. If the pap smear is not hers, the boys walk. But is Fassbender prepared to risk his career and also the livelihood of the MTSO by obtaining a...
Well, think about it. If they didn't play ball...
His career was already at risk.
If they didn't play ball, they wouldn't have a career.
Correct. But you see...
Just have it, like Peterson, we discussed the other day, Peterson being on Dr. Phil. He blatantly says stuff that's not true because they all feel they're untouchable. They feel that no one's going to do anything and they can get away with anything they want.
Correct. But, we're discussing the RAV, right? And I no longer care about the RAV because the only thing we need to take into account is one thing. How does Stephen's blood get inside that RAV? I'm talking about the RAV that Pam and God found, right? If you could prove there are 2, the case is over. But we can't at the moment because Kathleen Zellner can't get access to it. So
My question is, that would clear up a lot of things. When did they place that evidence tape on the car? Before they left the property or after?
Good question. Well, It must have been after because, what was it, Groffy?
Mhm.
One of them found the door open when he went to take photographs, right? The driver's side door was open, and he even said it in court. So he went on the Sunday to photograph the vehicle, right? Now, everyone at the salvage yard said that the doors were all locked, all of them. When he came along, he found that the driver's side door was open, and the only way you're going to open it is either with a key or with that Slim Jim or whatever.
Yeah.
Right? So,
lockout kit.
Yeah, but to me, the damning thing is this: the battery. Right? The battery. Someone swapped the battery. Why? Because probably the battery, when they found it on the 3rd, was dead. Right? So they had to swap the battery. Why would you want to put a new battery in there for? Because you need to drive it onto the property. Right? But what those idiots forgot to do is swap out the battery and put the original RAV4 battery in there. Right? So think about it. You got Teresa, who's driving all around the countryside. Is she going to risk not putting a genuine Toyota RAV4 battery in there? No. And if that battery comes from is it a police cruiser? It's from a police vehicle, the battery.
Manitowoc Fleet.
What on that tells you straight away. That tells you straight away. Someone put in a police vehicle battery to start the car up. Right? But what they forgot to do was to swap it back out, and they left it. Now, is Stephen Avery gonna take out the Toyota RAV4 battery, the original, and put in a police one? It's completely crazy, right? So whoever found it probably found the vehicle with a dead battery.
Knowing him, if he would have put that car there, he would have took the battery with him.
Yes. I've said it many times. I'll say it again. Look at this crime. Look at this crime. Look at the victim. The victim had her identity nearly 100% removed through extreme violence.
Well, even let's say her car was parked at the turnaround with the door ajar, it open a little bit, and it drained the battery. All you'd have to do is jump it, and it'd start right back up. But if you don't have a key to start that car, jumping it ain't going to do no good.
That's true. But then again, if they did find that car at the turnabout, the last thing I want to do is to have a truck or a tow truck or something else obvious all in that spot, because you can have more witnesses going past saying, oh, yeah, I noticed this towing company that was there. Then you've given away the game. So you want to get rid of that. You want to remove that vehicle as quickly as you possibly can and do it at nighttime.
And what they do.
So somebody would have come in there.
They removed it at nighttime.
Somebody probably, yes. Somebody came in there either with a towing vehicle or they changed the battery and they drove it off. Right? But what I was going to say, Millbilly and guys, is look how ridiculous it is. If Stephen Avery committed this crime, he used extreme measures to remove the identity of the victim to the point of removing all the teeth. Right? All the teeth are gone. There's no teeth. Right? And just a little bit of muscle tissue left. Yet, he leaves overtly a RAV4 with his blood in it and the victims. So notice the difference? He spent no time getting rid of the RAV that got him arrested, because what's her vehicle doing with your blood? Well, and yet he totally removed the ID of the victim.
Look at how he reacts when Wiegert and Fassbender start telling him things. They tell him about bones being found, doesn't react. They tell him about body being found, doesn't react. Tell him about the place being found, doesn't react. But as soon as they say they found a bloody handprint and his prints in the car, he's like, no. He couldn't believe it. That's the worst part of the interview, is right before they place him in handcuffs.
Correct.
Hey, Cindy Elzer's got a quick question here. Said, doesn't the law require for KZ to have access to the RAV?
Yes.
That's the thing.
Yes.
She submitted her brief. She was working with the state to obtain access to the RAV. They were under the impression there was about to be evidentiary hearing granted. So they were working with her to give her access to the RAV. And Judge Suckowitz decided to just deny.
Correct.
And that was like what, 1,100 some pages. And in her next brief takes as long as she can, and doesn't even focus on the main points. She focused on why she should not be removed.
Correct. And Kathleen Zellner, you can see it in MAM too. She goes, the judge didn't even look at 50 items that we put. She completely ignored it. Mm-hmm. And she even said, what was funny, she goes, I could have given them a videotape of a taped confession and they still would have knocked it back. So no judge wants to touch it.
I got a question here for the panel. Whose fingerprints do you think are going to be on the turn signal?
Ryan Hilliger's.
Well, that's definitely my top of my list right now.
Yeah, I'm backing that with the Ryan.
Not if he was wearing gloves.
The only thing that I always get stuck with, and this is how I'm going to go back to the one RAV thing. I know you probably want me to shut the fuck up by now, but seriously, if there was, let's just say that let's say Ryan's involved, and let's say a lot of people, I asked before, do people think that it was working with law enforcement and Ryan, or was it Ryan solely? He planned it. A lot of the people said it was both. They were working together. So my point is, I just find it weird that imagine them going to Ryan and going, hey, Ryan, we need you to do us a job. What's the job? We believe that Stephen killed her, but we need to get the RAV on there because without some kind of proof, we can't enter it. We can't bring justice to her. And he's like, radio. I now find it hard to believe. If they're going to tell him that, they'd go to him, oh, by the way, her RAV, we're planning it. It's not really her RAV. Why? That would raise questions with the family, like why would you need to plant her a fake RAV? If they're all in it together, they all know it's hers. Otherwise, I know people say they acted strange and there's that, but it makes no sense why they'd say, oh, by the way, we're going to make you do a crime with us because you're planning something, but don't worry because we're going to make it worse for you. It's not even real. So whatever. It doesn't.
Well, but that also means that Ryan owned up to a broken blinker light on a fake RAV. Right?
Exactly. Which takes me back to the loophole. It's her car. He's identified it as her car.
Yeah, none of her friends called in to say that car's different to, like they rang up saying, oh, we think look into Bradley Chet's or we think this and that, but not one of them rang up and went, that car's not even her colour car.
Well, there's multiple people that call in to talk to investigators. We never hear what they talk about.
I don't know that
they're transferred to their voicemail.
Well, what about the fact that I said that the moonroof's not a common option fitted to those vehicles? How many do you think are in Manitowoc with a moonroof? That's put on at the factory, Toyota factory, so they would know how many were made.
I've seen has had a moonroof, whether it be a 97, 98, 99, 2000.
It's still factory fitted, and is it the same color? Is it the mica teal?
I've seen white ones. I've seen black ones.
No, mica teal ones because we're trying to replace it.
I've only seen one green RAV4 in my life, and yes, it did have a moonroof.
So
but we didn't say green. We said mica teal.
Mica blue, mica teal, or whatever it's called.
That's two that we're seeing in Wisconsin, at least.
With moonroofs?
Yes.
Yep.
I'm going to find out from Toyota how many were factory fitted back in that time because they've got records of that.
Henberg's got a question for Silkman here. He said, I've tried telling you this. Odometer reading on 11.7 report to Fassbender indicates battery was connected and the key was in the ignition. Sherry Culhane lies when she said she turned 7620 key on 1108. I was just saying because he put that one to you.
She said Yeah, she said that she couldn't turn over the motor, but she was able to click the key in the ignition and open the door. So she was actually able to open the door with the key that was found in Stephen's bedroom.
Why didn't they fingerprint the bolt that's sitting on the dash firewall of the RAV4? Then why is it still sitting there? It would have fell. It would have fell off. Guarantee.
Yeah, no idea. No idea. But the key that they used, the spare one, the one that they found in Stephen's bedroom, Culhane said she was able to open the RAV4 door and also turn the motor, as in it turned. The motor didn't start because the battery was obviously disconnected. But don't you think, if the battery's disconnected, maybe Stephen went under the hood? It didn't come to their attention that they should actually swab the hood latch until I think it was in April, right? Months down the track, and right, they got a full genomic DNA profile from a touch DNA, right? And it was a huge amount of DNA. And when you consider the fact that it was sitting there for 150 days, that doesn't make any sense at all, right? So all their DNA levels that they got were really bizarre, right? But DNA is DNA, right? They're the levels, but it's inconsistent with touch DNA. But why? The bigger question is, why didn't they swab the hood latch battery terminal then, that day? Because it never entered their mind that that Brendan Dassey was going to come along down the track and say, oh, yeah, my uncle went underneath the hood. But the person who said, what did your uncle do underneath the hood, was Fassbender.
Mm-hmm.
Brendan never said it. What did he do under the hood if he was under there? And then what does Brendan say? That's where my uncle scratched his finger. Oh, no, that's not what they wanted to hear. No. Because if he scratched his finger, there would have been blood everywhere. There was no blood. Yep. There was no blood. And so what happens is...
I remember when they asked Brendan, what did they do to her head? Oh, we cut her hair.
Yes.
Then they get frustrated. I'm just going to say it. Who shot her in the head?
Correct.
Even did?
Correct. Correct. It's one of the most shameful pieces of interrogation I've ever seen. And how those two got away with it, those two, Fassbender and Wiggin, got promotions. And Ken Kratz goes,
everybody's been taken care of in this case, except for two people because they fucked it up for themselves. Lynn Kaczynski and Ken Kratz.
Correct. Yeah, it's bad. It's as bad as you can get. If you're looking at the crime, and nothing makes sense whatsoever. Now remember, Brendan Dassey is meant to be with Stephen committing all these crimes, right? And there's nothing that links Brendan to the crimes. There's nothing that links Brendan to Teresa Halbach, right? Nothing whatsoever. And so you've got this weird situation where Brendan goes, yeah, me and my uncle, we drove the RAV4 down to the pit, right? But if you have a look at the passenger seat, you've got a CD case that's full of blood, blood streak, and you've got two water bottles. Did they find any blood on his pants? None whatsoever, right? So they looked for every piece of forensic evidence to tie him to Teresa Halbach, but cannot. So the question is, what's that kid doing in prison? Honestly, what's he doing in prison? It's so embarrassing. He's now become a political prisoner because there's no way that they're going to release Brendan, because the moment they release Brendan, they don't have a narrative. There's no narrative. So it goes back to you, Millbilly. It goes back to Kelly. The RAV. The RAV is your crime scene. What do they needed to do? Put the bloody damn thing. It doesn't matter whether it was 1, 2, 3 RAVs. Who cares? They needed to put our RAV on the property with 2 sets of bloods, Stephen's, Teresa's. And as you can see, even that wasn't enough. That wasn't enough.
Okay, we've got an epic question here. And for those that have seen the video, T1 asked the question, is there 1 or 2 Richard Boyds?
2.
You got to throw that one in there.
He's been cloned. He's been cloned. Yeah, that was a classic video, that one. That was a really good one. But yeah, I mean.
But I don't know which one is the real Richard Boyd.
True.
I have a question for Millbilly. Millbilly, if Zona gets the RAV and she proves it's 1, are you still going to think that there's 2 and that they swapped it in all this time, or are you going to go, yeah, I was wrong, there's only 1?
If she proves it to the car, what else can I say? That's what I said. The only person who's going to change my mind is Casey gets that car. But for some miraculous reason she's not able to, then what? Then what do you say?
But
the most important piece of this case is the RAV and her alleged bones.
Correct. I mean, for me, the ultimate question is when and who placed Stephen's blood in that RAV, right? And that I was shocked that may not have been Stephen's blood in the first place. It could have been anyone's blood. And so what you do is you say, hey, look, there's blood over here, right? You can take swabs. And of course, they took swabs of the sink, the garage, and also swabs of Stephen's Pontiac Grand Am. That's all you need.
Trailer too. There was blood all over the trailer he moved when he reopened his cut.
Correct. So in other words,
everywhere.
Yes. So that blood in the RAV, is it really Stephen's? You just don't know.
You don't know.
And that's the problem. All you could do, you could fake it.
Or
so you can say,
"Oh, that RAV really Teresa's?"
Well, put it this way: we can argue till the cows come home, one RAV or 2 RAVs. I look at it from a different perspective. I look at it. Okay, Pam of God found a RAV, and it happened to be bluish in color, and according to the forensics, there is Teresa Halbach's DNA, Teresa Halbach's saliva, there's Stephen's blood in there, and we know that there's another blood on the back tailgate, on the back door, A23. There are 8 sets of fingerprints. None of them match to Brendan, Stephen, and a whole lot of the Averys. We know that there was blood found at the quarry, CX. Doesn't belong to any of the boys. It's a full male profile, right? So how in the hell did they get a full male profile from blood at the quarry and they can't do a re-extraction of A23? It's bizarre.
Dr. Silkman, we were actually discussing the other day, wouldn't you have expected to be in that RAV, in that right rear panel, more of a pooling of blood from a head wound?
The victim, if it's Teresa Halbach, she was wrapped up.
You know why?
She was wrapped.
Why I think they just changed the panels? Because it'd be impossible to change out the whole carpet because you'd have to remove everything. The trim panels for the doors, the seats, everything. Because it's all one piece.
Yes.
I just would have thought you would have expected to see more of a pooling because we do have the hairprint there, but I would have expected, like, even in the crack there, for there to have been more pooling of blood from a head wound.
Yes, it depends on what type of head wound it was. It definitely wasn't bullet wounds. If it was bullet wounds, it's likely the blood would have gushed out big time. because your heart's still beating.
Mhm.
Blood would have pumped out big time. There would have been blood absolutely everywhere. But if she was hit in the head with, say, a hammer or a tie jack, she could have been wrapped up in a tarp, and only the top of it, because remember, she had relatively long hair, so a lot of that blood would have been soaked. So she could have been wrapped up. Now, if I can do a shameless plug, tomorrow night in our next Coffee for Foul Play, we look at Zona's reconstruction, right, of a possible murder scenario, and it's really mind-blowing if it's true. But you're right. If she was shot in the head, there would have been gallons of blood. And Ken Kratz kept on talking about pools of blood. There isn't pools of blood.
He meant pools of sweat.
Yeah, his own sweat. No,
Yeah,
there's
exactly.
There's definitely not pools of blood. No.
I don't think there was enough blood in the back of that for it didn't look like, it just doesn't seem like there's enough blood in there for anything major to have happened to anyone, in my opinion.
And that I actually was thinking that the other day though. But you got to remember, and this can come into the Cuss Road side of it. She could have been killed. Let's say Cuss Road is the real place that she got hurt, killed, whatever. They said that they found a burial ground. What if she was killed and then put in the ground or whatever for a while? When you're dead, you stop actively bleeding. You don't just keep bleeding. So what if she got put in the RAV at any stage after she was already dead? It rained that night. That explains why the hair was wet. It activated the blood when they transferred, but that's why there's not enough blood in there, because it was already buried out on the soil. She could have been moved after the fact.
Yeah, they could have gone back and got her.
That's what I'm saying.
Yes.
And that's where they moved her to burn her somewhere, cut her up. So
Yeah.
that can explain why there's not enough blood.
Correct. And don't forget, if she was attacked anywhere around Cuss Road and she was temporarily buried, rested on the ground, and that's where the cadaver dog and also the scent dog hit. But I think there was more. There was more than just her laying down there. They found something of significance at Cuss Road, and Deep Six that buried it, as in literally took it away. But remember, if she was attacked on the 31st, then who moved her car? Who moved it?
I don't think it happened at Stephen Avery's. I don't think it happened at Cuss Road.
I don't either. I think there's a whole site altogether that we haven't found where it all went down, to be honest.
I believe she was kidnapped, held hostage, killed, and then dumped on Cuss Road.
Yeah, I totally agree.
And the people that did it thought it was Avery's property.
Yeah, and they got as close as possible without actually going on and being seen. Because if you stand back and you look at all the, like if you Google earthing and you look down at where the dogs have hit and where the car was found, it's like someone on the outside's trying to get as close as they can to the inside without actually going in and being seen. So planting it all around the perimeter.
Correct.
The only issue I have with the burying is I would have expected if the body had been in the soil, or even the tarp had been in the soil, to see soil inside that RAV if they used it to move it.
Oh, it's gone. Yeah. No, it's all gone. Like Millbilly said, someone has pulled something up from there. You can actually see it, the line in the carpet on the bottom. And I saw a lot of pictures of Toyota RAV4s, that model, that they normally have a mat at the back.
Yeah, they come with a mat. I had a look at all the stats of them last night.
Yeah, and a mat like that will be fairly absorbent of blood, but it depends. I don't think she was shot at Cuss Road. If she was attacked at Cuss Road, I think she was hit on the head and bundled in her RAV4 and moved.
If she was shot there, everybody would have heard it, especially at that time of day. Like Redant was on his way to work with Travis Grill, and there's neighbours all around. Like you would have heard a gun going off next door to your house. No, definitely not there. I think, I think what Millbilly said, I think they've grabbed her, taken her, whacked her over the head maybe, taken her in her own car, and I don't know, or even she's done a hustle, shot on her way home, and it's happened at their house, and they've had plenty of time to do what they want with her, and then taken the evidence back. And then the cops have just jumped
Correct.
on and went, oh, this is looking good for us.
Well, just
Put a
think
key
about
here
it.
today. We'll put a bone here today. We'll
Who's
do
the first
whatever.
person contacted in Manitowoc? Andrew Colborn. Hey, we got a missing person. Last person he was possibly seen with is Stephen Avery. I was just deposed in this lawsuit. Who's he call? Link. What does Link do? Request Jacobs and Remaker.
Yes.
Ding,
The
ding.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, it could have easily happened that quick, right? And so their way of thinking was, well, Stephen Avery did this. Let's make sure that it all sticks, because whenever you look at the evidence that was found off the salvage yard, they kept on referring to the salvage. Oh, it was found.
Well, I don't know if anybody else.
Half a mile away. They always refer to Stevens.
Wisconsin State Patrol photos we have. They're on Cuss Road. It's labeled as Avery property. They then take photos of the deer camp. It's labeled now Deer Camp.
Yes.
T1's got a question.
They're labeling Cuss Road as Avery property in the photos.
Yes. Yes.
And they're
T1
not
asked, if Ellie knew all of this info, why did they wait until the 7th to go to Cuss Road 2 days after finding the planted RAV?
Because they didn't know what happened to her.
Yes, correct.
There's
They
also
found
other,
her and not her.
there's also
Correct.
other theories though that Cuss Road was a decoy to get everyone off the salvage yards so the planting can begin. So I've also heard those theories as well. They use that as
Yeah.
evidence to
Calling
focus their
in
attention.
40 on the 7th saying they just heard a vicious rumor. A family friends of the Hall box heard over their scanner they found a body. The dispatcher doesn't confirm or deny it. She just says, oh, I didn't hear that on my scanner.
Yeah. See, I think they found parts of Teresa Hallbutt. If she was cut up, because they didn't know about the Manitowoc County gravel pit, right? So whoever had cut her up was burning her sequentially and dumping the cremains in the Manitowoc County gravel pit, but they were interrupted, right? Whoever was doing it, they didn't burn up her whole body, and they must have found part of her torso at Cuss Road, either on the ground or temporarily covered, because if you have a look at what happened with the finding of the cremains on Stevens' property, it wasn't done immediately. It happened afterwards and after Cuss Road. So the excuse that they used was, oh, bear scared us all off. Because they were asked, well, wait a minute, you were there on the 5th. How come it took you to the 8th?
Bear is still there on the 8th. He's not removed until the 9th. That's the same day that they don't have any dogs anywhere on the property whatsoever. They then bring the dogs back the next day, but they don't take them to Avery's burn pit. They're other places, 2.5 miles away in the quarry.
Yes.
Not on Avery's.
But it's all smoke and mirrors, Millbilly. If they present a box to Dr. Bennett and then Dr. Eisenberg and say
Avery's defense didn't have any of this Calumet County dispatch. None of it. None of it.
No.
None of it.
No, it's incomplete. Their investigation is full of gaping holes. We have the advantage now because we're working backwards, but the person who's already done this is Zellner.
Yeah,
so
but
she's going to hit him with all this stuff. Sorry, Millbilly.
They won't let her have stuff, so who knows what they're not really else they're not giving to her besides the RAV. Has she got access to all Bobby Dassey's interview? I don't think so. Because it's sealed evidence, just like the RAV. Every key factor in the case that I would like to get my hands on, it's sealed evidence. Can't get it. Even the phone call between Jody and Steven.
Yes. Well, I mean, look, with that. Sorry, Millbilly. With that phone call, imagine Millbilly, if Stephen goes, oh, this is days before Teresa is even thought about coming on the property. Oh, I've changed the bedroom. I've changed the layout of the bedroom. That's what they don't want you to hear, because Brendan Dassey remembered the bedroom the opposite orientation, right? Because they said to him, oh, when you walked in his trailer, what did you see? I saw Teresa Halbach tied to the bed. Wait a minute. You can't. If you look at the way the bedroom is now, Teresa Halbach would have been around the corner.
Right when you walk in, you don't see the bed. All you see is
exactly right. Exactly right. So imagine if on the phone call, love, I've changed around the orientation of the bedroom. I can't wait till you come home. There goes. That is perfect proof that Brendan had no flipping idea of the crime, right? Because that's why they got Jody in. They said, oh, Jody, by the way, can you tell us how that bedroom was arranged? Oh, it was arranged that the bed head was near the window. You could see it as you walk down the passage. But that lady has been in prison for months. So if Stephen had completely changed the room to vacuum clean, because apparently he liked to clean, then that automatically proved that Brendan Dassey had no idea what he was talking about. Right?
Nope.
No idea what he was talking about. And therefore, his defense will say, well, when did Brendan change the bedroom back? Right? So they're stuffed. So they've got to suppress it, Millbilly. They can't release those phone calls, because if he mentions, oh, by the way, I got a rug doctor, I've changed around the whole bedroom, it's now like this.
No,
right? Remember with the gun rack?
I'm interested in one phone call in particular. November 3rd, 9:33 p.m., Jody calls Stephen's trailer.
Okay.
And I guarantee he talks about Andrew Colborn coming to the house and what time it was.
Right.
And that's why they don't want us to have that. Because it's
probably not
completely destroy their narrative of what took place on the 3rd of November.
Correct. And if you're going to plant the key,
there's a reason why they're lying about what the time it was when Karen Halbach reported her missing. They claim it's 5 p.m. No, it was 2:37.
It's not. Correct.
And they lie about what she
just buys them more time.
They lie about what she says.
And the color of the car too. Was it the color? It now went from green to blue.
She says dark green, kinda. They said, she called at 5 p.m. and reported her daughter missing, driving a dark blue '99 Toyota RAV4. Yeah. No, she called at 2:37 p.m. and she strictly stated
dark green
RAV4.
Dark green.
Kinda.
Correct.
What I've always wondered is with the bones, like cut up, burnt, and then scattered so far apart, like wouldn't it have been easier? Someone suggested to me today to just dump them in a river. Why scatter them all around that area?
Well,
and then over to the next gravel pit.
Well, they're trying to hide it.
Yeah, but why not just dump them all in a river?
Well, the thing is, it's someone who's either knows the terrain, knows the comings and goings of people. You got to do it. You can't be caught doing it, right? You can't. If you're spotted and caught, you're in trouble. So
could it be a worker? I'm wondering at Redance, dumping him on his way out home.
Don't know, but they found. I think it was 3 debris piles, and Eisenberg absolutely said they contain human, cut, burnt bones. Human.
I get the scattering and the misplacing of them all.
She could be lying too.
Yeah, that's the thing. Who do you believe?
Except that the forensic anthropologist of Kathleen Zellner looked at the pictures and said they are human bones. Even he looked at them and said,
Doesn't
"No,
prove
these are human."
Teresa's.
Of course not, Millbilly. Of course not. That's why Kathleen Zellner said, "Give me the flippin' bones. I'll get the guy who invented the anti-rapid DNA system. We'll check them all. Check all the bones. Right?
Yep.
You get a full genomic profile, game over. Or even sequence the mitochondrial DNA. You got Karen Horbach, perfect match. You get a perfect match. Game over, guys. Game over. But the state did not want to resolve it. And when Ken Kratz says about the best forensic anthropologists in the world, bullshit. I'm sorry I had to swear, but
it just always bothers me that
she's the best forensic anthropologist.
You hear Andrew Colborn stating that Teresa Halbach west of Avery's, but she never left the property.
Yeah, that's as clear as day.
Correct. Yeah, correct. But you see,
and Andrew Colborn is in an area that he doesn't report being. None of the Manitowoc officers do report to being on Cuss Road. None of them. They're on White Cedar.
Hey, so Millbilly, being that you brought that up, them calling out saying that Teresa found at Cuss Road.
Mm-hmm.
Do you is that something, how if Andrew is pulling off this lawsuit, is that something that could be used against him in that lawsuit? I'm not, I know you're not a lawyer. I'm just throwing that out there that may be able to be used against him in his defamation suit.
Nothing can happen until Zellner gets her day in court. Until she gets that day, we're right where we are right now, talking about it.
Yeah, I think it's at the least. I do think it's going to end up in an evidentiary hearing, but hopefully a retrial.
I wouldn't be surprised if they asked for an extension.
Extend the extension.
Well, they didn't ask for the other two extensions. That was done because of COVID.
Yeah.
Yes.
They could make up some stupid excuse like I was self-quarantining, so I didn't get to actually do this. And the fact that the one attorney general, she dropped off, and now we got a new person in, and they might claim, "Oh, I haven't enough time to look over the evidence." We don't know.
Isn't that what
they actually have to go to the clerk of court to see the evidence?
Zellner's tweet kind of inferred that, didn't it? One of the recent tweets.
Just like her tweet saying that the blood came from Stephen Avery Sinks, that rules out law enforcement. No, it doesn't.
No.
Yeah, but that's just a poker face, I think. I think she does that just so she gets taken more seriously to get into that evidential hearing and then a trial.
Yes.
All right. Well, I think that's enough.
I was just getting started on the DNA. Come on.
Yeah, I want to ask a question of why the police were at Teresa's house 136 times.
Murder investigation.
Or at someone's house. Shouldn't that have been a crime scene?
Just think about it. Everything they found, where did it come? Right to Avery's. No matter where it was found, it came to Avery's.
Yeah.
First.
Yeah.
Central Command. Correct.
But I've never heard of any case in my whole life, and I've watched a lot of murder shows, and just even in my own state, that the police go to your house that many times.
I don't think any other cases have been broken apart like this one, Calf.
Yeah, it was like a meeting place, or I don't know. It does my head in thinking about the many times that they went there.
Yeah. Put it this way. Something big happened.
The same day they find the RAV, Jacobson goes to interview Zipper again.
Yeah.
That morning, Remaker is instructed to go back and re-interview Stephen Avery and George Zipper. And he's like, "Oh, man, Zipper again?"
Yeah, I was just about to say, because they would have wanted Zipper to get his story straight because he was a handful.
So Remaker went to Avery's and Jacobs went to Zipper's.
Hey, Earl just said they needed to get back the photos that she kept under her bed.
Yeah, well,
Yes.
that's it. And how many of them were of police officers? I wonder.
Yes. Don't even joke. That's
No, I'm
could
not
well be-
joking.
or maybe Ken Kratz as well.
Exactly.
Lord help us. Yep.
Yeah.
Ooh, I just
Oh,
threw
yeah.
up in my mouth.
Yeah.
Yes. But the reality is, if she was taking these compromising photos that could be potentially used for blackmail, they would have been down. They would have checked the house from top to bottom, and they did take They did take those pictures, and they took them away.
But
Yeah.
they
They
were
would have gone through all her film everywhere.
never put into evidence, never given a number
No,
for evidence.
no.
Oh, that's because everything that was implicated somebody else was collected by Manitowoc, not Calumet. That's why we have Calumet going and taking photos of Manitowoc's evidence in these photos. And you hear Pago say himself, even after they're notified that the conflict of interest in a $36 million sub, days later, Pago is saying that, oh, it's Manitowoc's case. They asked, oh, do you want us to bring the crime lab down? Oh, Manitowoc's got theirs here. We're using their stuff.
Mm.
And they finally call their crime lab in, and the guy that's supposed to be in charge of the vehicle calls in the dispatch and says, hey, did somebody take our crime lab for a joyride or something? Because it's gone. Oh, yeah. It's at Avery's. Just,
And she did keep photos too, because I think that they found Bradley Chetz's at her house.
They
Yes,
don't really say whose it was. It's a male and a female, and it has negatives with it, but they don't ID it as far as I know.
Because when his ex took a harassment order out on him, in the files it says that there was a lot of harassment emails, and there was also photos involved. So
it's like they take items in the evidence and they don't list the location, but then they list items that they looked at but didn't collect, but they list the GPS locations of that. It's retarded.
Yes.
They just label it as Avery's, and that could mean anywhere. Cuss Road. Wisconsin State Patrol isn't notified about Cuss Road until 3 p.m. on the 7th. Well, after everything's been removed. But I'll leave that for another time. I can dive into
That's
that.
another discussion.
Yeah.
So we haven't advanced anywhere between 1 and 2 reps yet.
Yeah, we
No, I
have
think
the moonroof.
We have
No,
The moonroof.
maybe in your
Yes.
eyes. Come on. Stalemate. We all think what we think.
True that.
Eating a dead horse. But
Well, thank you, Millbilly. That was a very
Thank you,
interesting
Millbilly.
discussion.
Yeah, it was good fun.
yeah, I got a little heated there, but yeah.
No.
Y'all have a good night.
Good night, everyone.
Thanks.
Take
We'll
care,
see you
guys.
later. Bye.
Out.